Hi everyone, I thought I'd do a video response to Simply Learning, that is Alberto's resources video, and show you some of the language resources that I'm currently using. I've been learning Italian for just over 3 years and I've just started learning Russian, so I'm only going to show you some resources for those two languages. The first resource I've got is a course by a well-known company called Linguaphone. They're quite well known in the UK and possibly in America, maybe not quite so well known elsewhere. Their standard Italian course is made up of 4 textbooks and a set of 8 CDs plus a Getting Started CD which shows you how to use the course. Now unfortunately my camcorder is recording everything back to front, so you're going to see all the text backwards. This is the main text consisting of 30 lessons, and each lesson is split into 3 sections. The good thing about this is that all of the text is in the target language. There is no English at all in the book. The next part of the course is the explanatory notes and vocabulary, which is just what it says it is. Each lesson and each section of the lesson has a series of language notes together with grammatical explanations and vocabularies. The next part of the course are written exercises. Again, a set of 6 written exercises for each of the 30 lessons, with a key at the back so you can check your answers. And the final part of the course are the oral exercises. Again, these are all in the target language, 3 oral exercises for each lesson, and they are also recorded on the CDs. Now I've been through this course, I've actually lost count of the number of times I've gone through this, and it is probably one of my favourite courses for Italian. They are quite expensive. If you buy them new they're about £190, but if you look on eBay you will often find Linguaphone courses for sale and you can pick up some real bargains. I picked up the Linguaphone Portuguese course for £12, so that's quite a good deal. The next course is the Linguaphone Italian Assimil, the English version. I do like Assimil, but I have to say I have some issues with this particular edition. There are several mistakes in this course. Some of them are simply irritating spelling mistakes, and some of them are actually more serious. For example, in lesson 42, which is a revision exercise, there is a table of direct and indirect object pronouns just here. The problem is it's back to front. They have put the indirect object pronouns under the heading of direct object pronouns, and they've put the direct object pronouns under the heading of indirect. Now, as you can see, I've actually corrected these. If you have some experience with Italian, that's simply going to be annoying. If you are a beginner, you're going to look at this and get quite confused. I hope that in future editions this will be corrected, because that is quite a serious mistake. However, the content is excellent. A lot of people think very highly of Assimil, and I have to say I do quite enjoy this course. I've been through this once, I'm currently going through it again. Okay, the next course for beginners, Teach Yourself Italian. Again, I do quite like this. I've completed this. It's actually beginning to fall to pieces now. Pages are starting to come out. Very good course, some good dialogues, quite thorough. One word of warning: Teach Yourself now call these complete Italian, complete French, etc. In content, they are exactly the same as these older versions. The only thing that's changed is the cover, and they've added a few more pages in the introduction. So again, if you look on eBay or if you look on Amazon Marketplace, you can pick these up very, very cheaply. Okay. I do have a colloquial course which I'll just nip out of its case. Again, this is an older version. There is a more modern version out, but it is identical. Again, it's just the cover that's changed, and the fact that these are on cassette, it now comes on CDs. I have to say I wasn't overly impressed with the colloquial Italian. It is only a beginner's course, but it doesn't deal in any great depth with the subjunctive. It only deals with the imperfect and the present. Now, the subjunctive is very common in Italian, and even as a beginner you will need to learn it. So if I were to give this marks, I'd probably say 7 out of 10 for that. Right, moving on from beginners courses to, shall we say, intermediate. Teach yourselves, improve your Italian. This is an excellent course. Comes with a set of CDs, and the texts are a mixture of dialogues that were recorded by native Italians but then re-recorded in a studio by recording artists, so the language is clear and there aren't any distracting noises. There are articles from newspapers and a couple of literary examples as well, specifically by an author called Natalia Ginzburg, who happens to be one of my favourite Italian writers. This is well worth the money that you will pay for it. Look out for it second hand on eBay or Amazon. Really well worth getting. There are some Italian courses which are designed for use within a language class, specifically if you go abroad to Italy. And I have a series called La lingua italiana per stranieri, which consists of 4 books. One is sort of a beginner's course, then there's an intermediate level, and then there is an advanced level. I've got those here. Here's the whole selection. Not readily available anymore. Again, I was lucky enough to pick these up on Amazon. This is the beginner's course, the thickest one of the lot. It is supposed to come with audio material. That is unavailable. The good thing about these is that everything in here is written in the target language, even the instructions. So you do need a reasonable knowledge of Italian to use it, but using a course like this gives you a really good sense of achievement, because you are not only reading the didactic material in Italian, you're also reading the course instructions in the native language as well. By the time you get to that stage, you really feel as though you've arrived. So there's the beginner's course with exercises. Then we have the intermediate course, which is separated into the course itself and a book of exercises and tests. And then finally, Corso Superiore, which is the advanced, and this is actually quite dense, even though it's a fairly thin book. But I love those, really good. Grammar. Fairly basic but quite thorough grammar is Berlitz's Italian Grammar Handbook. This is another one I got second hand. Unfortunately, the binding on this wasn't particularly good. As soon as I opened it, pages started falling out, so I bought a brand new copy as well. But this is really easy to use. Nice colour coding, don't know whether you can see that. Looks a bit like one of the new Linguaphone courses in its layout with the blue headers. There's a lot of cross-referencing, covers just about everything you need to know. Plenty of examples, well recommended. The only other grammar book I'm going to show you is a reference grammar of modern Italian. This is brilliant. Very, very detailed. Not the sort of book that you would read from cover to cover. If I give you an example, it spends 9 sides simply discussing when to use the auxiliary avere and essere, which gives you some idea of the level of detail it goes into. Okay, as I say, you would not read this from cover to cover. It is a reference book. So those are the only 2 grammar books I'm going to show you. Idioms. If you start reading something and a literal translation just doesn't seem to make any sense, you can bet that it is an idiom. And this book of 2000 Italian and English idioms is well worth getting hold of. This is easily available, quite a thick book. But for example, we'll have, let's have a look. Here's a heading here for ferro, iron. And one of the idioms we've got here is battere il ferro finché è caldo, to strike when the iron is hot. Or essere ai ferri corti. Now, translated literally doesn't make any sense, but it means to be at loggerheads. That one I wouldn't be without. On a lighter side, Dirty Italian, and it really is what it says. It is a book filled with swear words and slang expressions. I won't read any of these out because some of them are really quite vulgar. Why would you want to learn this? Well, I like watching Italian films, and one of the things that you will have to get over is the amount of colloquial language that's used in a film. You know, if you're watching a gangster movie, they're highly unlikely to say he's been murdered, è stato ucciso. They're more likely to say l'hanno fatto fuori, which literally means they've done him outside, but it means they've killed him, they've done him in. And that's where you need this sort of thing. Also, if you go to Italian and you're talking to Italians or you're listening to Italians speaking to each other, you really want to know whether they're insulting you or if they're swearing at you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to start using this sort of language, but it is quite fun. That's a good one. Once you get beyond the beginner or even lower intermediate stage, you're going to start thinking, well, I'd like to start reading novels, more complicated texts. Le avventure di Pinocchio. This is brilliant. It's a parallel text with the Italian on one side and the English on another. I am really sorry that you can't see these much, a lot clearer than this. I am going to try and reverse the video to flip things back the other way, but it may not work. Not an easy one to get hold of. I got this from Blackwell's in Oxford. Quite easy to read though. I have read this, I've been through this twice. What else do I read? I mentioned earlier that I do like Natalia Ginzburg, and I was lucky enough to get hold of a book of her essays, Le piccole virtù, and also Lessico familiare, which is an account of her childhood. The good thing about Natalia Ginzburg for someone who is just starting to read Italian novels is that she writes in a fairly simple and straightforward fashion. At the other extreme, you've got people like Gadda, who is the Italian equivalent of James Joyce. and if you think of Ulysses, you'll understand how complex Gadda is. And Italian natives are going to hate me for this. Every Italian schoolchild, I would think, has heard of Manzoni's I Promessi Sposi. I think it's read in every Italian school, at least in part. And I got hold of this Italian edition and also its English counterpart, published by Penguin. And my goal, although I haven't yet got through it, is to get through both of these and complete them. As you can see, I Promessi Sposi is quite a lengthy tome. Those are just a few of the Italian resources that I picked out. I could have shown you more, but I had to be selective, because if I whip the camera around, that bookcase there is absolutely full of Italian books. You can see that the ones I've chosen have hardly emptied it. I am a compulsive book buyer. Okay, resources for Russian, they haven't quite got to that stage yet. Again, Assimil. Now, I was fairly critical of Assimil's Italian edition. This is really, really good. It's a newer version of the Russian course. Again, it's colour-coded with some nice blue text, and I do think the format of a book is important. If text is printed too closely together, it is quite off-putting, but this is quite nicely laid out. The first lessons in this start off with really, really simple sentences, and there are only an average of 6 sentences a lesson. It goes into pronunciation in quite a lot of detail, because although Russian is basically phonetic, there are some really peculiar sounds that are difficult for a non-native to get their tongue around. That is very recommended, along with its accompanying CDs. The other 2 Russian courses I have, Get Started in Russian, one of in the Teach Yourself series. This is for people who don't want to get too involved in the grammar. There are grammar explanations in here, but they're fairly simple and straightforward. The only thing I don't like about this is that in order to indicate the stress of a Russian word, instead of using an accent mark, now you're probably not going to be able to see this, but what they've done is they've put the accented syllable in capital letters, and it has the result of making the Russian text look really quite ugly. I would have preferred it if they'd simply used an accent. But again, with its CDs, this is a really good course to get started on. The other Russian course which I'm going to show you or talk about is their Complete Russian. So it's the big brother of Getting Started in Russian. This is much more detailed. Really, really quite a good course. And in the Russian text, I'm glad to say that instead of using capital letters to indicate the stress, they've used accent marks. So I do have a few other things. I have a Russian dictionary, I do have another Russian CD course, but I think that's enough to be getting on with, and this is turning out to be quite a long video. It really was just to show you the sorts of things I use. Again, I do apologise for the fact that all the books were shown back to front, but I hope it's given you some idea of the sorts of things I use. Okay, bye.